Today we've got a WA320-8. This is getting delivered in a couple hours, so I thought I'd just do a quick walk around. So one thing, I'll kind of do a bit of a walk around and kind of point out what I look for if I'm operating the machine. I like to stand in the middle of the bucket when first start up. You can kind of see down the whole front of the machine, and essentially you see all your work equipment. This one isn't an auto greaser, so what we're checking for is not actually physically greasing, but physically seeing if the grease is coming out. So we're checking 1, 2, 3 points here, point there, point there, point there, point there, and then you come to the side and point there. There's 3 more down the bottom here, which we can go around the back and see. Other thing we're looking at is your cutting edge, making sure it's all intact and not too damaged and good for operation for the day. So on the back you've got the 3 points here, 1, 2, 3. And the good thing about these ones, the grease lines are all protected with this V channel. The ones to watch out for are the ones in the middle here. And then also watching out for this sensor, that's for your bucket tilt. So making sure you're not getting any branches or anything protruding through there. All right, wheels, lug nut indicators. Pretty standard on most machines now. Really good, peace of mind. Always good to give it a crank, just make sure they're loose, not loose. But the lug nut indicators kind of help out with that. Moving around the back, you'll have 2 wheel chokes, 1 on each side, lube chart. This will point out all the lube points in the machine. Articulation point, so this will articulate. Red bar right here, you can swing that over and lock it into here to lock out the articulation if you need to work on it whilst it's running. Window washer fluid, sight glass, and to fill it up, just open that up. Transfer case, so in there there's a dipstick. So as you can see, dipstick in there. Make sure it goes back into that holder. You don't want to be fishing around for it down in there. Okay, on the cab, you've got the air conditioning outside into inside air filter. So pulling that down, you can see the outside to inside air filter in there. You know, your ROPS FOP certification plate, auto greaser, and ground level fill. So we'll give you the female version of this so you can plug it onto your grease hose. But if you just have your standard grease gun, you can use this to fill up with a standard grease gun. The trick with these auto greases is essentially not letting them run dry grease. Always make sure they've got grease in it. If you run them dry and air gets in the system, you have to bleed all the lines. So really critical, make sure you keep your greaser full. Okay, so this has got the gull wing doors where it comes out. So first thing you want to do is undo the latch up here. So undo that and then just pull the lock there and that'll open. And underneath here, coolant overflow bottle. Check your hoses, check your clamps, make sure the hoses aren't damaged, the clamps are tight. Starter isolator, pretty much DPF system in there, nothing really to see. Check your hoses, check your clamps, and then access to your intercoolers back here. With the air filter, you've got a Turbo 2 pre-cleaner on it, so this just brings the particles down to a smaller setting and also kind of cleans the air before it gets into the air cleaner itself. Like all of our loaders, 2 batteries, one 24-volt battery on this side, and then one on the other side. On the rear of the machine, you've got the tail lights, e-stop, camera, reverse lights, and then you've got a brigade backup sensor. So this just is a proximity sensor, just like you would have in your car. So opening this up, this fully swings open, and then you can actually swing open the fan. Get some good access on that, so you can really get in here and clean these intercools if you need to. Hydraulic fan, so this does have a reversing fan, but good access in here. Access to fuel as well. You don't need to open the fan up to get access to the fuel, just so I'd show you that. Just lifting up the door, so we're closing this up. Moving around to the side. Second battery and battery isolator. Okay, so dual pole battery isolator and your battery isolator light. Or your tier 4 final machines, which one this is one. Essentially when the light's on, no isolation. While the light's on, it's purging all the lines of the AdBlue and putting the AdBlue back in the tank, and also doing a shutdown. Really critical, and probably something that really damages the machine if you isolate too early. So make sure that you're waiting for this light to disappear before you isolate the machine. If you can avoid isolation and it's not a site requirement, much preferred to leave the isolator on. Okay, opening up on this side, you got hydraulic oil, air filter, air filter indicator, fuel filter sight glass, engine oil fill, and engine oil check. Check your hoses, check your clamps, and then intercooler access back here. You can see a bit more happening up here without the guarding on, but that's your DPF system up there. So fire extinguisher, emergency exit over here, and over here you've got your AdBlue tank. So opening this up, AdBlue tank and ground level check gauge. You'll have a gauge inside the cab as well, an electronic one, but it's just so you can check it on the ground when you're doing your walk around. Other wheel choke, compliance plate for the machine, articulation area, and then front of the bucket with the compliance plate for the cab of the door. So this will release it from that, and then when you're inside the cab, this will open your latch when the door is locked. Behind the seat, you've got an auxiliary input and your 12-volt cigarette lighters, cup holder, fire extinguisher. With the chair, you've got two foldable armrests with the adjustments underneath, adjustments for your back, and then this is the adjustments for the spring or the damper. So essentially it's an air ride seat, but you can choose how bouncy you want it to be or how firm you want it to be. Right here is your air up, air down on the seat. Tilt the front, slide the seat forward and backwards. So top down, rear defroster, Bluetooth radio which you can play your music through. This has got the added seatbelt alarm and door alarm. So if the seatbelt or the door are open and the seatbelt's not on, this will alarm. It's very annoying, so make sure you got those on and closed. UHF. Alright, so moving on to the window, safe work and load chart. And then you've got your joystick for your boom. So boom up, boom down, curl up, curl down. The good thing with this is if you are in a dump position, you can hit that and it'll return back to level. It's also got a remote boom position or height set, so you can select a height up top, pull that up, pull that all the way to the back, and it'll raise to the point that you want to. The other one's got its bucket float, so you can push that all the way down when the bucket's on the ground, and the bucket will float on the ground. Great for leveling work. Hey, you got a hydraulic lock. This is a new one. It's an aftermarket add-on. Just a numeric code to start the machine. Here we've got the pump control. So this is in first gear only, and essentially it allows you to have the speed of second gear, but the pump speed of first. So good if you're using like an attachment or something like that. It'll allow you to go slower or faster, but it'll maintain your engine revs for the high hydraulic oil output. Traction control in here. This will switch between your column shift or your joystick shift. So essentially if you're in the R mode, you're shifting on the column here, or F mode, you're shifting on the joystick. This is to change your lift from either bucket or forks. So essentially if you've got forks, it'll keep the forks parallel to the ground as you lift up. With a bucket, it'll curl the bucket up so you don't lose your material. This is the remote boom positioner set. So essentially you can set your desired height up here, and when you pull back on the joystick, it'll stop at that height that you selected. And then engine idle up or RPM up. So secondary shutdown, engine shutdown switch, hazards, lights, beacon, electronically controlled stabilization system, and then your nighttime, daytime setting for your dash, gear selector, directional selector, horn. Very cool right here. So this is for your two-way, so you can actually use this to talk and then change the volume in the channel. I think I have to play around with this, but yeah, that button to talk on your UHF. Over here you've got your lights, lights on, indicator, high beam, low beam, wipers down the bottom, and then blues for the aircon, grays to go through the dash. And then down the bottom here you've got your cooler box for your drinks. Okay, so with the GME, so this button right here increases the channel. So if I press this, goes up. This button brings the channels down, and then this middle button here is the torque. All right, with this screen you've got your coolant temp, torque converter, oil temp, fuel, and then this is for your HST, AdBlue, gears, directional selector, time. If you have an attachment, this will be the hydraulic flow going to your attachment, and then any extras that you've got turned on will be on here, and then your air conditioning right here. Engine hours down the bottom, kilometers on the right. So now going into the dash, the first screen is operational records of the machine, what the machine's doing. Second tab is where you can choose your coasting level. You can choose your manual fan reverse mode. So you can do a manual fan reverse. So essentially change the direction of your fan to the opposite way to blow out your coolers. You can do an automatic fan reverse. The good thing with this is it'll automatically turn on and it won't affect your operation. So you can turn it off, or you can select the different modes depending on the environment you're in. So mode A is every 2 hours it'll run for 1 minute, 1 hour 1 minute, half hour 4 minutes, 1 minute, and every 1 minute it'll go for 30 seconds. So this can be adjusted for the environment that you're in, and then if you're noticing that you've still got a lot of buildup, it's good to just park it up and do a manual fan reverse. So traction level selection, so you can actually leave this to auto, or you can select 5 other different traction modes depending on what environment you're in. Traction selection hold is essentially whatever you turn it off in, it'll turn back on in. So if you shut the machine off and it's in high traction control, it'll turn back on in that mode. Eco traveling mode, good for fuel savings. You can turn the reverse speed limit on, so if you want to limit the reverse speed to a certain limit. So I think this is just into gears, so it'll limit it to second gear if you turn that on. The boom raise detent setting, we'll go through that in a sec. PZ auto tilt in selection, so this is essentially how much tilt do you want in the bucket. Okay, so light, heavy, or normal. Essentially, how much material do you want falling out? Attachment settings, so you can actually go in here just like the excavators, and you can change the oil flow rate to your attachment. This one doesn't have an attachment, it just has a normal bucket, so we'll leave that. And trip meter and auto idle stop timer setting, so that we'll set that up for 5 minutes. Essentially 5 minutes of idle time, it'll shut off. DPF information, so you can disable a burn, do a manual burn, or your soot level up here. AdBlue information, maintenance information, screen adjustments with your brightness or your time, and then any messages from Komatsu. Okay, so with your boom, we'll unlock the hydraulics right here. So that red part would disappear, so you saw that's gone. Now we'll have full access to the joystick. So what we want to do, as you can see, I'm reversing, and that's the backup sensor saying I'm getting close to something. As you go closer, it'll change in colors: orange, orange, red. Okay, so essentially imagine there's a line through the machine. So we want to be above that line to set the height. So we'll raise it up. So just to show, it'll go all the way up to the top. Alright, so that's the top of the boom. Now we're going to go a bit off of the top. We're going to set it right there. So now what we're going to do is press this button. So you hear the beep, and now we will lower it back down and just make sure that it is set to that height. So we're going past that. So now I'm just going to pull that back right there. And then automatically stops there at the height that you desired. So what that is just operator fatigue. So the biggest thing is, what you do is you basically pick your highest truck, set the height for the bucket, and then essentially you can just pull that back instead of having to hold it, and then it'll automatically stop at the highest point for you for that truck. It's just operator fatigue, allowing you not to have to operate that the entire time. Okay, the other one, if you're in the full dump position, you can pull that over, and then that's returning back to level.